Coming up on Valley View News, demonstrators protest the increase in anti-Asian hate crimes. Plus, authorities plan to remove the homeless encampment in Echo Park. And amusement parks are reopening in spring, but there's a catch.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Lisette Ceja.
And I'm Casey Contreras in the Digital Media Center.
Members of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus went to Atlanta Sunday. They saw the somber sights of this month's deadly spa shootings. Their goal is to bring attention to the growing number of anti-Asian hate crimes in the U.S. California Congressman Mark Takano was among the group.
They see with their own eyes, and they feel what they feel, and they have been gritting their teeth for an entire year, shaped by the words of a former president.
The representatives paid respect to the 8 shooting victims who died. Several lawmakers said the shootings were motivated by racism and misogyny. California Democrat Judy Chu wants the Department of Justice to prosecute the killings as a hate crime.
Everything that we saw today gave me even more determination to go back to Washington, D.C., to ensure that we have our Department of Justice use its resources to call these murders a hate crime.
Here in Los Angeles, some in the Asian American community protested against the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes. Our reporter Andrea Esparza was there.
Asian community is under attack. What do we do?
Hundreds of demonstrators gathered in front of City Hall protesting the rise in anti-Asian hate crimes. Many blame political rhetoric for the increase.
I think what the president says and what politicians that he nominates says on TV has a huge weight, and it carries to a lot of people because what they see on the TV is what they believe.
Demonstrators are outraged at Atlanta's law enforcement. Officials refuse to label the recent mass shooting as a hate crime, even though to some it seemed obvious.
We're under attack. What do we do?
Well, it's obvious that person killed 6 Asian women. He cannot change the facts that he attracted to these Asian business places and killed a bunch of Asians.
Protesters used this march not only to protest Asian hate crimes, they also showed solidarity with other minorities impacted by racial violence.
We need to stand together, and we need to stand united. We can't be divided. We should not fight against each other. That's what they want. They want us to fight amongst each other.
Protesters want media and law enforcement to view the Atlanta shooting as a hate crime, as failure to do so demonstrates the blatant disregard for Asian American lives. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Andrea Esparza.
The murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin started this week. He's charged in the death of George Floyd after kneeling on Floyd's neck for more than 8 minutes. Floyd's brother Terrence Floyd says the trial is a chance for the justice system to prove it can be trusted.
They want us to trust the system. Well, this is your chance to show us that we can trust you.
In his opening statement, prosecutor Jerry Blackwell said it's clear Floyd's death was a homicide and the use of excessive force wasn't needed. While if defense attorney Eric Nelson's opening claim the use of force isn't attractive, he said it's necessary for policing. The Floyd family attorney Ben Crump said race plays a part in the case.
If George Floyd was a white American citizen and he suffered this painful, torturous death with a police officer knee on his neck, nobody will be saying this is a hard case.
The first witness to testify was 911 dispatcher Jenna Scurry. She watched the incident on her TV monitor. She said she knew something was wrong when the image of the police holding Floyd on the ground wasn't changing. Then she said she did something she's never done before in her 7-year career. She called a police sergeant to intervene.
In the wake of 2 mass shootings that left 18 people dead, President Biden says he's confident that a rational gun control bill can pass the Senate. If not, then Biden still may use an executive order to bypass the Senate.
Of course I am. I'm the only one that's ever got it passed, man. Everybody keeps wondering whether I'm cared about dealing with rational gun control. The only gun control legislation ever passed is mine. It's going to happen again.
Congress narrowly passed an assault weapons ban in 1994 when President Biden was a senator, but it expired in 2005. House Democrats earlier this month passed bills expanding background checks.
Record rains caused flash floods in Tennessee. 4 people died and dozens needed rescuing. Nashville got more than 7 inches of rain during the weekend. It was the second highest 2-day rainfall ever in the area. Mayor John Cooper said first responders joined the Red Cross on Sunday trying to help victims. Resident Chris Butterick was keeping a close eye on the flooding.
It's incredible how quickly the water has come up since, like I said, 5:30 this morning, 6 o'clock this morning. It's coming up now, and just in the last hour, it's come up another couple of feet. So it's still rising as we're sitting here talking.
At least 130 people were rescued from cars, apartments, and homes. March has historically been a turbulent weather month for Tennessee. Last March, tornadoes killed 20 people and destroyed more than 140 buildings.
For the past year, Echo Park Lake has been home for several people without housing. The city is now trying to shut down the small community of displaced people. Reporter Kimberly Linares explains how the city's plan pushed many to protest.
We'll start making announcements. You'll see captains. We might break up into teams.
Hundreds of advocates for the homeless protested at Echo Park. They opposed city plans to close down and evict the unhoused community living there.
For some reason, they think if we clear the park out, if we get everybody into some hotel, no more homelessness. Wrong. For every person you take, there's 2 more that come with nothing.
The peaceful protesters marched to the office of council member Mitch O'Farrell, where they sought answers.
Rent prices. When are we going to get some relief from that?
People are more aware of this stuff that's happening than ever before because of things like social media.
George Floyd's death by police and Black Lives Matter protests taught the younger generation about the power of their voices through hashtags and other social media techniques.
We as a society should support one another rather than treating people such as our unhoused friends as second-class citizens.
Protest organizers encourage the community to stay overnight, serving as a protection so that possible evictions don't occur. Reporting from Echo Park, for Valley View News, I'm Kimberly Linares.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says the recent COVID surge can't be blamed on the new COVID variants alone. More people have been traveling for spring break and states are now lifting restrictions. The country is seeing a spike in cases, reporting an average of 61,000 new COVID-19 cases a day.
I've said many times to you that when you're coming down from a big peak and you reach a point and start to plateau, once you stay at that plateau, you're really in danger of a surge coming up. And unfortunately, that's what we're starting to see.
Some state officials lifted restrictions on gyms and restaurants, and other officials plan to eliminate statewide mask requirements.
The Biden administration and some private companies are working on a way to keep track of who got vaccinated against COVID-19. Vaccine passports are one way people can prove they've received their shots. This would be helpful as businesses start to reopen. The Biden plan is driven largely by the Department of Health and Human Services. The passports would be free as an app on smartphones.
4 Southern California school districts returned to in-person teaching after a year of online learning. Long Beach Unified, Glendale Unified, Downey Unified, and Manhattan Beach Unified school districts welcomed their students back. They all had a list of COVID-19 protocols to follow. The guidelines are based on public health officials' recommendations. Most schools that are reopening will be operating on a limited schedule.
The San Diego Convention Center was repurposed to a temporary overflow facility for unaccompanied migrant children. This week, about 500 girls between the ages of 13 and 17 arrived there. California Representative Barbara Lee says they still have a long way to go.
The Customs and Border Patrol facilities are to hold people, hold adults. They're not prepared to take care of children, so we've got to reprioritize our resources.
Last month, Border Patrol agents picked up more than 9,000 children crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. The number of children crossing has steadily increased since dipping in April 2020. The Biden administration said it has a plan to create more long-term licensed facilities to hold children.
Comic-Con received criticism after it was announced that Comic-Con Special Edition will be held at the San Diego Convention Center on November 26th through the 28th, Thanksgiving weekend. The pandemic stopped a lot of family gatherings last year, and most fans said they would prioritize spending time with family instead of going to the event. Organizers explained the chosen date was the best balance of available space and their vision.
Theme parks around Southern California can reopen with rides and attractions starting April 1st. Our reporter Stephanie Garcia takes a look at the pandemic's impact on the amusement park industry.
Amusement parks in California have been closed since March of last year because of COVID-19. The closures have had a significant impact on park employees. In the past year, more than 40,000 theme park workers were laid off. Some are now hoping to get a call to come back to work.
I don't know necessarily what's going to happen to my job there. I don't know if they're going to call us back or not, but I'm really hopeful that they do.
Under Governor Gavin Newsom's updated four-tier business reopening blueprint, amusement parks got the okay to open gates as soon as April 1st.
Everyone is required to wear a face covering during their visit.
According to the state officials, amusement park attendants will be subject to various coronavirus mitigation measures, like mask wearing and physical distancing.
Temperature checks are required upon arrival.
The guests look forward to heading back to theme parks. Some visitors, like Charlie Franco, are positive the parks will follow COVID-19 safety protocols.
I'm kind of excited, especially because I know that Disney will take protocols onto safety, especially. That's very important.
So far, only Disneyland Resort and Six Flags have announced their reopening dates. Six Flags will be open on April 1st and Disneyland on April 30th.
Due to capacity limitations, only California residents will be allowed to visit the parks at the moment. Reporting for Valley View News from Anaheim, I'm Stephanie Garcia.
Coming up on Valley View News, reporter Leslie Gama covers a march supporting International Women's Day. Plus, there's more international news.
Coming up on Valley View News, Los Angeles offers COVID-19 vaccines to everyone age 16 and older. Plus, a White Lives Matter rally in Huntington Beach was met by counter-protests from the Black Lives Matter movement. And the nonprofit called Good Karma LA is helping to feed the homeless.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Lisette Ceja.
And I'm Savannah Birchfield in the Digital Media Center.
Even as conditions continue to improve, the COVID-19 death toll in California now exceeds 60,000. This number represents 10.7% of COVID deaths nationwide. Recently, the state was recording over 100 deaths per day, down from more than 500 deaths per day in January. The state's low-income Latino community saw disproportionately high numbers of deaths. LA County recorded 232 deaths for every 100,000 residents. The number of patients hospitalized in LA County also dropped nearly 28% from 2 weeks ago.
The New York Times is reporting that more than 62 million Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccines need to be checked for contamination in the U.S. This comes after a Maryland manufacturing plant ruined 15 million doses by accidentally mixing up the ingredients. 3 of their other vaccination sites have also temporarily stopped administering the vaccine. Over 40 people have experienced minor adverse reactions, including nausea, dizziness, fainting, and lightheadedness. European regulators have also announced that they are investigating this shot for links to unusual blood clotting. Most of the negative reactions occur within the first 15 minutes after a person gets the shot.
Anyone 16 and older in LA County can now get vaccinated for COVID-19. Appointments are available at city-run vaccination sites. The Pfizer vaccine is the only one being offered. You need to show a valid ID and be a resident of LA County. The city-run sites are open Tuesday through Saturday. Several other counties are also vaccinating those 16 and older, including Riverside, San Bernardino, and Kern.
In an effort to get kids back to school, LAUSD launched 25 vaccine centers. Lincoln High School in Lincoln Heights was the first to open. Our reporter Kimberly Lopez was there.
LAUSD is opening up 25 community vaccine centers. One of the first opened Tuesday at Lincoln High School in Lincoln Heights.
the problem of having enough space to do vaccines.
Jim Manja, director of St. John's Well Child and Family Center, says they're spreading the word in order to get the community vaccinated.
A lot of the outreach has been very targeted. So LAUSD is doing outreach to their parents. That's the time that we need to keep it under observation.
A lot of people came to get vaccinated. George and Yoli Garcia are parents and members of the El Sereno Historical Society. They say they also want to help get the word out to the community.
Let them know that this is here and that it's right next door to them and that it's available for them to use today.
So now we can go back and let them know how easy it is.
LAUSD Superintendent Austin Butner also stopped by. These vaccine centers target the Latino and African American communities. That's where providing protection from COVID-19 is especially crucial. Butner says the main goal is to get kids back to school.
Vaccinate the adult, vaccinate the family member, vaccinate grandma at home, and the child comes back to school.
LAUSD plans to open up 61 schools in the upcoming week, including elementary schools and children daycare. Reporting from Lincoln Heights, I'm Kimberly Lopez, Valley View News.
Many colleges will soon require students get vaccinated, but some people are opposed to the idea. Nevertheless, in the past, courts have upheld the right of colleges to mandate vaccines. The schools say they just want to protect students and staff. In a recent survey, students seem to prefer vaccination over practicing social distancing. And there remains the concern that some students will make fake vaccination cards in order to go back to school.
A vaccination site in the Bay Area was forced to turn away people over the weekend. San Francisco started offering COVID vaccine doses for everyone 16 and older just a couple days before the rest of California. Early vaccine eligibility was opened for 8 priority zip codes of underserved communities. Thousands of people showed up early to get in a long line at the Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Luke John Day says 6,000 people showed up before 9 a.m. The vaccination site only gets 2,000 doses per day, forcing staff to turn away people. Hospital officials urge residents to return any day over the next several weeks from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Arriving early is encouraged in order to guarantee a vaccine.
COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations in the U.S. are rising again. Michigan is in the middle of a surge. The B117 variant is spreading rapidly there. It tends to target people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s with more severe symptoms.
Michigan was the first to heed the Biden administration's call to drop all of the priority groups and make it accessible for everyone. Right now, if you are 16 and up in Michigan, you can get vaccinated. You're eligible.
It takes about 2 weeks after the Pfizer and Moderna second doses to get immunity. It also takes about 2 weeks after the Johnson & Johnson vaccine before immune sets in. Dr. Celine Gounder says the incubation period, which is the time from where you're exposed to when you're infected with coronavirus, is 4 to 5 days. Gounder says the best way to control the surge is to mask up, stop dining, and socializing outside.
In the trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, the family of George Floyd says the defense is trying to raise doubts about Floyd.
They're going to talk about him as a person having opioid addiction. They're going to try to use that as the basis to say that's why he died.
Chauvin's attorney Eric Nelson played body cam video and asked witnesses if they could hear Floyd say, "I ate too many drugs." Nelson also asked paramedics why they did a load and go, which was putting Floyd in the ambulance and driving a few blocks away before beginning treatment.
A Minnesota police officer fatally shot a 20-year-old African-American man during a traffic stop last weekend. Police say the shooting was an accident. An officer mistakenly pulled out his handgun instead of his taser. The shooting happened in the suburban neighborhood of Brooklyn Center. When Dante Wright was killed, people took to the streets in protest. After reports that protesters were throwing rocks at the Brooklyn Park Police Building, more than 500 National Guard troops were called in.
Tomorrow, what you will see is a greater law enforcement presence, a greater National Guard presence as we move into phase 3.
The killing happened about 10 miles away from where former police officer Derek Chauvin is on trial in the killing of George Floyd. The National Guard already planned to increase its numbers as closing arguments approached in the Chauvin trial. Now with protests over the death of Daunte Wright, the Guard will increase personnel sooner than expected. The body cam footage in Wright's shooting was recently released. It's graphic. The name of the officer involved wasn't released, but the officer is on administrative leave pending an investigation. A newly organized group called White Lives Matter held a rally in Huntington Beach. There was chaos as counter-protesters from the Black Lives Matter movement arrived. Valley View's Andrea Esparza was there as fights broke out and arrests were made.
It's for everybody!
Tensions ran high at Huntington Beach Pier. White Lives Matter protesters gathered to demonstrate against what they believe is the end of white culture. But they were met by counter-protesters from the Black Lives Matter movement.
Brown people are dying, black people are dying, Asian people are dying. This cannot continue. This has to stop.
White Lives Matter protesters say they're using their First Amendment right to protect what they consider American culture. They think racism should be a thing of the past, claiming America's fate is predetermined by a higher power.
Created you black and me white. This is already predetermined. So if you want to get caught in the bogs of racism, we can argue endlessly on that, and we'll never get anywhere.
White culture to me is putting up your hands and fighting, not acting like a little bitch.
Protests quickly grew heated when fights broke out. 2 White Lives Matter demonstrators were arrested, and Huntington Beach resident Shalisa Williams believes the White Lives Matter movement is a product of fear because people of color are finally being heard.
Are you upset because your privilege is not working anymore today? Are you mad because now your violence is being silenced and we're not letting it go on any further?
White Lives Matter protesters say they're going to continue to protest all throughout the country until they feel like their voices are being heard just as much as Black Lives Matter protesters. Reporting for Valley View News, I'm Andrea Esparza.
There were several hundred White Lives Matter protesters and counter-protesters at the rally. White supremacist groups were there, including the Loyal White Knights faction of the Ku Klux Klan. There were fights between protesters waving Trump flags and some people in all-black clothing. The entire rally was quickly declared an unlawful assembly by police and numerous arrests were made. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is defending President Biden's broad definition of infrastructure jobs in his American Jobs Plan. Biden says his $2 trillion plan will improve the nation's neglected infrastructure. It already faces opposition from Republicans who think it costs too much.
The sooner the better, I think, is the bottom line. We've got to get this done. We're going to take on board a lot of ideas. We're going to negotiate, but we can't just sit here and let the clock run out because the American people can't wait.
The administration wants to move quickly. Experts say not taking action isn't a good option. Spending on infrastructure is expected to boost the economy. The group Nutritious Life started meal distribution sites to help kids and teens to get healthy meals while they stay at home during the pandemic. Our reporter, Ava Lang, has more on the organization.
COVID-19 school closures made it difficult for parents to feed their kids. A lot of children normally get balanced meals at school. So, Nutritious Life started meal distribution sites in Los Angeles for kids and teens to continue to get healthy meals.
We kind of like fill the gap during the times that school is out. So Nutritious Life is a summer sponsor through the California Department of Education.
Nationwide, nearly 20 million low-income students rely on school meals for nutrition. For some, the school meal is their most nutritious meal of the day.
We usually serve breakfast and lunch, so it's a full meal. The kids get fruits, they get protein, they get grains, the veggies and the milk, everything.
Since the pandemic hit in March last year, Nutritious Life has fed more than 2.5 million kids. Families can pick up free meals for children under 18. Information for pickup hours and location is found at nutritiouslife.org.
Some parents are out of jobs. They weren't able to pay their rent. But at least, I know that we were able to at least keep food on the table for the kids.
Nutritious Life is accepting applications to become meal distribution sites for churches, schools, and organizations. Reporting in Los Angeles, I'm Ava Lang.
More to come on Valley View News. The Good Karma has fed more than 13,000 people on Skid Row in the past 36 weeks. And movie theaters are now reopening as coronavirus numbers decline. Stay with us.